Welcome in to Locked On Knicks. The Knicks lose 111 to 106 to the Brooklyn Nets after being up by as many as 28 points in this game. Their third loss after being up by 20 or more in their last 7 games. I'm Alex Wolf. He's Gavin Shaw. And Gavin, what are we going to talk about in this latest new rock bottom for the Knicks?
Well, to the surprise of many, we will start off with the topic of Tom Thibodeau's job status. I'll leave that up to you guys to see which direction we go there. You should be able to guess it. And then we'll get into some game specifics and your questions. All that and more right now on Locked On Knicks.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, welcome in to Locked On Knicks. We want to thank you guys for making Locked On Knicks your first listen every day, whether it's on your podcast platform of choice or on YouTube, where we've continued to grow, which is awesome, despite the Knicks being just abhorrently terrible. So thank you guys for rocking with us, regardless of how bad our stupid basketball team is. I'm Alex Wolf. I'm editor-in-chief of Knicks site The Strickland, which you can find at thestrick.land. He is Gavin Shaw, your favorite play-by-play broadcaster. And this is, once again, the Fire Thibs podcast. No, I'm kidding. This is Locked On Knicks. But the theme, Gavin, will once again be heavily on the hopefully imminent firing of one Thomas Thibodeau, current head coach of the New York Knicks. I said in our little Locked On Now video, which if you haven't already, check out the Locked On Now podcast, like our answer to Sports Center. But I said in our little video about this game that I hope that Thibs wouldn't make it out of Madison Square Garden with a job tonight. I hope that he wouldn't even get to do his post-game press because this game was that big of a disgrace. Gavin, you have long been called the incognito Nets fan or whatever, despite the fact that you haven't hosted a Nets podcast in 3 years. How are you feeling after this horrendous loss by the Knicks here?
You know, my roommate's a massive Nets fan, and he will tell you that I was screaming at him for a lot of the fourth quarter. So if that doesn't satiate people, I don't know what to tell you. We should not have bet rent on this game.
We're gonna need to get your roommate needs to come on here for the exclusive. We need to get the 60 minutes report on whether you were screaming at the end of this game or not.
He's like faded out and like his voice is like distorted. Like all I know is he was wearing a Cam Thomas jersey. Yeah, but wow. Maybe I don't think a Nets fan would say what I'm about to say. I think a Nets fan would say keep Tom Thibodeau at all costs. But I think it is time. I've tried to be very conservative in calling for Thibs' job because it's not. I'm sure Alex, you would agree. It's not fun to ask for anyone to be fired, especially someone who puts in the work to his job that Tom Thibodeau does. This isn't for lack of effort. This guy, I'm sure, is spending every waking moment thinking about how to make this basketball team better. But either he simply has no idea how to do that, or he's completely lost his players and they won't listen to him when he tells them how to do that. Either one of those things is a fireable offense, and that sucks. But that is where we are at because the bedrock of the culture of this team has gone from maybe cracked to completely shattered and broken. It's beyond evident at this point that the Knicks are playing on a loop, right? They get out to these big leads, third 20-plus point blown lead in their last 7 games. They do so against teams missing the majority of their best talent. The Portland Trailblazers were missing 4 of their 5 opening day starters. The Knicks led that game by 24 points. They, of course, lost. They played the Oklahoma City Thunder, a team without their top 2 leading scorers, who's already the worst offense in the NBA. They give up, 128 points in that game. They fall to Oklahoma City. And then they play the Brooklyn Nets, missing Ben Simmons, Kyrie Irving, and Kevin Durant. They dominate the start of this game. They were up 40-18. They were out shooting the Nets in the second quarter, 71% to 26%. Not for the second quarter. That was through that point in the game. And if you're anything like me, your butt was tightly clenched because you did not have any expectation that the Knicks were going to hold on. And of course, they did not. And it was the same exact reason they haven't held on all of these games, They come out, they play with pace, they hit their shots, and then Thibs continues to play the wrong guys. Julius Randle runs out of energy and parks himself at the elbow and clanks jumper after jumper. The guys who are actually playing best, i.e. Emmanuel Quickley and Obi Toppin, do not get minutes at crucial times. There are no strategic adjustments. The end of game offense is consistently on life support and claustrophobia inducing. And the Knicks inevitably blow a lead because we are in Groundhog Day right now, Alex. There is no differentiation from game to game to game. There are no adjustments. It is the same pain over and over again. I've long said, if you're a Knicks fan, you're a masochist right now. Tom Thibodeau is the ultimate masochist because it seems like he derives some kind of sick pleasure from doing this over and over again. And the sad part is, I know that's not really true, but for whatever reason, he cannot get the Knicks out of this horrific loop. And because of that, he has to go.
Yeah. And, I said this, I think I've made this analogy on this show before. I said this again. Yeah, I made the rounds today. I did the Locked On Today podcast with Peter Bukowski, a little segment for this as well. And the analogy that I used, because I had seen that he was just done with doing some post Super Bowl talk, was the way that Thibs is coaching right now is like a football coach that can get his team out to. He's almost like, if I was going to draw a parallel to a football coach, I would think it would be like Mike Shanahan, right? Shanahan was famous for, he would write out his first 20 offensive plays or so on his playbook. And he would go to those 20 plays without fail, every single game. And usually they were pretty good. He would bust out some pretty interesting stuff. The Broncos or the football team would jump out to a lead or whatever, and then down the stretch they would just totally crap their pants and lose the game because Shanahan just didn't know how to adjust late. And my analogy for Thibs is he's almost like that football coach lately that comes out gunning and enables his players to stretch things out, calls a bunch of deep pass plays or whatever, but then switches to the run way too early. And Thibs' version of switching to the run and trying to run out the clock is switching to Alec Burks being your point guard and having literally he has to be one of the worst volume paint scorers in the entire NBA. Having the guy that can only shoot 30% around the rim continually attempt to break down the defense and get in to shoot at the rim is literally the definition of insanity. And I don't understand it. This is what has been losing the Knicks games. It's what you said with Julius Randle, jacking the mid-range shots and whatever. It's, if it's not Randle doing that, it's Burks running an ill-fated pick and roll where his only objective is to get to the rim and somehow not do enough to draw a foul, but also not do enough to get off a clean attempt and just throwing up some garbage at the rim and missing. And it's so frustrating, to watch because we've seen glimpses of what the best of this team can be lately, with these huge leads that they build up. This team can play with pace. They can get out and run. Julius Randle can throw nice outlet passes. These guys could be hitting trailers for 3-pointers like Grimes, Fournier, even Kemba Walker did at times in this game. And it's beautiful basketball. It's modern pace and space NBA basketball, straight up. It is the most modern style that you could possibly play. And then they go back in a time machine and play the most archaic style of basketball they can possibly think of, which is just grinding the ball into dust in the half court and, slowly trotting the ball up the floor every time they get it. And I don't understand where this shift comes from and why there's not more of an effort by Thibs to be okay, maybe, running is the only thing that worked for us this game. Maybe we should play Obi Toppin more than 10 minutes or whatever he played in this game. And maybe, just maybe, try him and Julius Randle together once and just see how it works. Just give it a shot. My God, what do you have to lose at this point? I don't know if Thibs is just getting off on the pure embarrassment of getting his ass handed to him every single game, but it's terrible lately. And I'm just sick of watching it. You know what I mean? It's embarrassing and it's just annoying as a fan. I mean, I literally, it was just terrible. Hearing opposing Nets fans being able to drown out Knicks fans in the Garden at times is next level terrible stuff. The Garden should never have a takeover of anybody. And, we like to joke that there's only like 5 Nets fans, but Thibs is such a deflating presence at this point that he can completely quiet and neuter the most like loud and rowdy home field advantage almost in sports. And it's insane to me. And I'm so tired of it. I'm so tired of watching him. And I agree with you. I don't want to be like, oh, Thibs, you're fired. But the reality is he should be fired. I mean, you don't want to cost anyone their job. And I appreciate everything he did last year, but his time is up. He should not coach another game for the New York Knicks. I hope that as Stephen Bondi noted on Twitter, James Dolan got up angrily after Cam Thomas hit the sort of dagger shot in this game. I hope that he is not the coach after the All-Star break. Maybe they want to take a day or two to think about it and lessen the blow a little bit rather than firing him tonight. But I hope that he is not the coach after the All-Star break because he doesn't deserve to be at this point. And I appreciate everything he did last year, but he's clearly lost this team, and it's over for me. Before I throw it back to you to talk more about that point, Gavin, and maybe point out some more specific instances of Thibs being terrible, I'm going to let everybody know about Prize Picks. All right, NBA fans, are you looking for a daily fantasy option for the NBA? Then you need to try the award-winning app Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. I love this app, and I know you will too. It's easy to use. You pick 2 to 5 players and an over-under on their projections, and you can win up to 10 times on any entry, and it's just you versus the projected numbers. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It really is that easy. PrizePicks is safe and offers fast withdrawals. You can use the award-winning app on both the App Store and Google Play. PrizePicks also offers a variety of options. They offer any prop you can think of, from points scored to rebounds or even steals. They also allow mixed sport entries. So you can take it's a little hard to do mixed sports right now. I guess you could do hockey. I couldn't name a player on the Rangers right now.
You could do Quentin Grimes' brother, maybe getting more goals in a game than Quentin Grimes gets clutch time shots.
Wow. Does Grimes actually have a brother that plays?
He does,
hockey?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah,
there you go.
Cool?
Wow. All right. You bet the Grimes brothers. There you go. So you could bet the Grimes brothers on Prize Picks and pick different stats for them. And Prize Picks doesn't just offer the NBA. Of course, they offer college basketball, college football, the NFL, MLB, soccer, MMA, and more. For a limited time, Prize Picks has an exclusive no-brainer of an offer for all of our users. Users get $50 for free if a player in your first Prize Picks entry scores a single point, but you must use code NBA. That's right. This is an exclusive offer available to Locked On fans. Sign up today and use the code NBA for $50 for free if a player in your first Prize Picks entry scores a single point. That is not a lot of points. You can definitely get that money. And we want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Knicks your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Now podcast, which, like I said, I was on today. I was saying the Thibs should get fired. We have nightly recaps of every NBA game with analysis from our local experts. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts. All right, Gavin, I've rambled for long enough. It's your turn, buddy. I'm passing the baton back to you. What else you want to say about this monstrosity of a game and the job by Thibs in this one?
Yeah, so this was going into tonight's game, but let me just quickly throw these stats out there, courtesy of our friend Schwinn. He was kind enough to tweet this out 2 days ago. Since the start of the 2021 season, Julius Randle has played a little over 4,600 minutes. Obi Toppin has played right around 1,500 minutes. Out of that time, they've played only 139 minutes together. During that time, the Knicks play faster. They get more dunks. They get more layups. They get more threes, and they shoot less from mid-range. They have a positive plus 2.7 net rating in that time. Since the start of last year, the Knicks have a 109.7 defensive rating with Obi and Randle on the court together. In 94 minutes this season, that defensive rating is 108.2. This year, the Knicks' defensive rating with the other nominal backup centers, Julius Randle and Nerlens Noel, 113. Julius Randle, Taj Gibson, 112.9. So the Knicks are better offensively and better defensively with Obi Toppin on the floor relative to Julius Randle playing with a traditional backup center. And that is over not an extremely large sample size, but a significant enough one that one would think that it's worth, to your point, Alex, simply trying as an adjustment. And that, more than anything else, is why Tom Thibodeau, we believe, deserves to get fired, because he is not willing to make the attempt. And that's okay when your team is winning or winning enough, but this team is not winning. They're certainly not winning enough. I will circle around on this point and say I think the fundamental issue with this team is they're only as good as their shooting, right? And that's been true this entire season. If they're raining threes, they can compete with just about anyone. They can look like world beaters. The problem is they don't really have the personnel in terms of creation to consistently get good shots. And their creation right now derives from Julius Randle basically being Superman. And I mean, earlier in the season, it was fine if you wanted to put a lot of all these issues on Randle. But since he has become an absolute superstar, which is I think it's the last 7 games at this point, they're 1-6, right? And that's with Julius averaging, what is it, like 30, 10, and 10, basically, or pretty close to that. They are not a good team, even when Julius Randle is frankly a better player than he was over the course of last season. And that should tell you that the issues are far deeper. And you look at the starting lineup, and that makes total sense because if Julius isn't doing absolutely everything, there is nothing. There is no offense. There is no creation. There is no consistent source of income for this team on either end of the floor. And because of that, you'd presume the adjustment would be to go to whoever the hot hand is off the bench. And in this game, it was Emmanuel Quickley and Obi Toppin. As we mentioned, Obi played just 11 minutes. None of them but Julius Randle. Emmanuel Quickley finished the game, hit a big-time floater to give the Knicks a chance to win the game down the stretch. But he was subbed out for a significant portion of the time, as you previously noted, for Alec Burks. And that's the issue with Thibs. He has been given chicken you-know-what this year, and he has not turned to chicken salad. He has just kept it as chicken you-know-what. So this is partially on the front office, but it's on Thibs for not making the necessary adjustments or simply acknowledging that if this roster is so fatally flawed that there are no adjustments to be made, you can simply opt out and say, let's invest in the team's future. And for someone who in the past has had a voice in management, there should be some inclination to look towards the future. And for a guy who currently has somewhat of a voice in terms of the deals they make, according to a whole lot of reporting that we've heard. And Thibs he simply cannot see past the game every night. And he doesn't win the games every night. So what do you do with that person?
You fire him.
There you go.
I think that's it.
There you go.
Yeah. I mean, I'm totally with you on everything that you're saying. I think it all just comes down to adjustments or lack thereof. And it didn't bite Thibs as much last year because this team just kind of found a formula and it worked. And they were lucky enough that nobody got injured. They never had to run into adversity last year. And this team has, I will say, like, some people use this to defend Thibs. I think it's just another mark against him that every team in the NBA has had to deal with some really untimely absences this year. Whether it's due to COVID, when every team was getting, completely struck by that, or which the Knicks sort of lucked out. I mean, everybody kind of got sick in phases for them. They weren't like some of these teams that literally were like, I don't know if we're going to be able to play a game tonight, like having that few amount of players. So, the Knicks really they weren't in that bad of a situation COVID-wise this year. So they sort of lucked out again as far as that was concerned. And then they've had some other, injuries, some nicks and bruises here and there where, guys will be out for a game or two and then be back. Nerlens Noel comes to mind, Mitchell Robinson, whatever. But like, good coaches figure that out. Good coaches work through the issues. And Thibs, it just seems like if things can't go exactly how he has it scripted, the Shanahan style thing, to make that reference again. And honestly, maybe Thibs really is kind of a Mike Shanahan of basketball, the more I'm thinking about it. But like, it's like when things can't go exactly how Thibs wants them to go, he doesn't know how to react. And he also somehow has gotten worse at reading the game as it goes on, because last year and even earlier this year, there were a lot of times where he wouldn't run these rigid end of game lineups that he's been doing lately. Like if Quickley was cooking, he would say, okay, Quickley, you could play through the end of the game. Or if a lineup that sometimes even wasn't, featuring Julius Randle was kind of cooking, he would finish with that lineup and, do something like that. Like there were scenarios where he was trying different things earlier this year and last year. And that was part of what helped the Knicks win. And this year, it's just kind of like, especially lately, it's almost like he's given up in a way. And I don't know if that's because he feels like his players have given up on him, or if he just kind of sees the writing on the wall at this point, potentially, and realizes like, well, I'm in too deep now. Like, I'm pretty much done. So may as well, I don't really have to care about coaching for my job anymore because I already pretty much know my job's gone. I don't know what the answer is to all these questions, but I'm at least happy that in the early stages of games, we're getting to see what this team could potentially be at their best if they get a competent coach that knows how to adjust. And hopefully they'll get that coach next after Thibs leaves. And, hopefully the good that Thibs did manage to do can stick around for the next coach to then take this team and hopefully move them to another level as far as coaching goes. But yeah, I don't think he should be the coach coming out of the All-Star break. I get this feeling that he probably will through the end of the year, which will be a real shame because it would be nice to see what someone like Johnny Bryant can do, but we'll see what happens. But Gavin, if people want to maybe place a bet on Thibs' job going into the All-Star break, is there a place that they could go do that? Perhaps the exclusive betting partner of the Locked On Podcast Network.
There's only one place they should do it, Alex, and that is Bet Online. Football might be over this season, but basketball is in full steam for both pro and college hoops, not for the Knicks, but everywhere else. From all the latest odds, totals, player performance props to where the next fired coach is going to land. Wow, that hits home. BetOnline.net is the number one spot for all your sports betting needs. BetOnline remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline.net is your source for hockey, boxing, and UFC odds right to the Olympic coverage and information you desire. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. Bet online where the game starts. My final note on Thibs. When he was hired, I said I think he is the Mark Jackson to someone's Steve Kerr. He played the role of Mark Jackson to a T. The beauty of Mark Jackson was he only got one season. We're seeing what maybe year two would look like under Mark Jackson, and especially if Mark Jackson did not have Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and Draymond Green and all the other great players on that Warriors team. It's not as great. So the Knicks need to go find their Steve Kerr. And I think this is just a general statement on human nature. I think most people would rather fail doing what they're comfortable with than succeed doing something uncomfortable. And that is ultimately, to some extent, the story of Tom Thibodeau, who, to his credit, by and large, has been a winning coach in the NBA. But in this specific context with this Knicks team, bereft of the talent that he had in Minnesota, at least when Jimmy Butler was there, and the talent that he had in Chicago, this is what it looks like, and it's not good enough. Alex, we can finish a number of different ways. We can go over some game notes, but that I think will just bum us out. So why don't we get into some questions that we got? Where do you want to start on those?
Well, so first we'll just address the trigger warning, what I call it, the suicide questions.
Yeah.
Gary Lombardi on Twitter at FLNatic237 asks, do I jump now or yes X asks, how are you guys doing tonight? Andrew Kyler at Andy Puggles. Oh, I'm sorry, that was at 007 Ballers asked how we're doing. Andrew Keller at Andy Puggles asks, what the F? The actual word though, but this is a family show. I'll just answer those real quick before we get into the regular questions. Gavin, what the F? I don't know, man. You tell me. How are we doing tonight? We're okay. If this was enough to phase us, we wouldn't really be Knicks fans. And do I jump now or metaphorically, yes, jump on the Fire Thibs bandwagon. Literally, do not jump off anything, even if it's off your couch. You never know, you could turn an ankle. All right, and then to get into the actual questions, Gavin, we just got a few we could briefly go over here. We got one that I'm going to shout out that we're probably going to turn into a mini show because this is such a good question and so lighthearted that we really need this right now. We did have a question where we were asked to make an all-time Knicks All-Star weekend and make our cases for who would win the slam dunk contest, skills challenge, 3-point contest, and all that stuff. With all Knicks players in their prime and whatever. So we're going to save that, but that's going to be a fun little mini episode before the All-Star weekend, All-Star Saturday night. But our first question that we'll take here real quick. I think I'm going to go with this one. Rella1K at Rella1K asked us, if the Knicks fire Thibs, how much longer could you see Randall staying on the team? Gavin, my answer is funny enough, I could see him sticking around for a while. I mean, I don't know why firing Thibs. I don't think those two are connected at the hip anymore. In fact, I think that Randall, in many ways, kind of seemed over Thibs. And I wonder if that's part of why he seemed like he was kind of mailing it in for parts of the season, is because he and Thibs weren't really seeing eye to eye anymore. So if anything, I wonder if, just like we're saying that maybe Thibs knows the writing is on the wall, maybe Randall also knows that the writing's on the wall, and that's why he's starting to kind of pick his play up now, and find his better self, because he knows that he might have a new coach like a Johnny Bryant to play for sooner than later. But that's all just speculation. None of that's like sourced or anything. But I don't see any reason why, if Randall continues playing how he has these last few weeks, that he couldn't play out his whole 4-year extension here.
I mean, I think that's what makes Julius such an interesting player, right? Like I was talking about this a little bit after the Thunder game. He's, again, 6'8", 260 pounds or whatever he weighs right now, and he can basically do everything well on a basketball court. It takes the right coach to utilize that in the right way. And the challenge is he's so clearly at his best when he gets to domineer on offense, but he's not quite good enough to be the best player on a good team. So how do you balance that? How do you maximize like the diversity of his game? And the further issue with that is, like, the Knicks don't have the right to be picky. Like, if someone better than Julius Randle wants to come to New York, they have to take that guy, and they can't say like, well, let's wait until we find like the perfect complementary piece. Odds are you're going to get a messy piece next to Julius Randle. And to maximize that, you need a really creative, brilliant coach. But if the Knicks can find that guy, then I think Julius can be truly the best version of himself, which is, I think, what we're seeing right now, but just a little bit more understated. And maybe that just means he's playing the same role, but he's only playing 30 minutes a game instead of 37 minutes per game. Or he's playing 37 minutes per game, but for 25 of those minutes, he's only the second best player on the court. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know who that coach is. In Thibs' defense, he doesn't have the luxury of Randle being the second best guy, but I know that it can be better than this because Julius is good enough for that. And just the sheer fact that over these last 7 games, we've seen it be so much better than we've ever seen it with Julius Randle, including last season. So there is something there. And I'm totally with you. I don't think there's any connection at this point between Thibs and Randle. Question from Spanish Harlem alum at Paul B. Diaz. Why didn't we draft Cam Thomas at 19 instead of punting on the pick? Can't say it was because of defense, given who we've drafted and signed as free agents. Alex, I know you had some thoughts on that one.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm always a little against like hemming and hawing over who you should have drafted at what spot or whatever. Ultimately, the way that things went, that pick basically turned into Cam Reddish. I would say from a pure NBA archetype standpoint, I am a little more interested in what Cam Reddish might have to offer this team, particularly if the Knicks get a new coach that's more willing to play young players and give, Reddish a little more guidance and some more leeway to go out there and hopefully play his best brand of ball. I think the Reddish, premium wing players are much more valuable than, scoring guards that can't really play too much defense. And, the fact that Cam Thomas wasn't targeted on that end to make up for the fact that he was torching the Knicks on the offensive end at the end of this game is definitely more of a testament to just how terrible the Knicks are on offense than, Cam Thomas being passable on defense. So, I don't know. Yeah, we shared our opinions on that night that we probably would have preferred that the Knicks make that pick too. And we had our laundry list of guys that we were hoping that maybe they would maybe look at, like a Trey Mann, or did Mann go right before that pick though?
Yeah, he won like one pick ahead.
Yeah, he went one pick ahead.
Keon Johnson was the name that we.
Keon Johnson was the one.
Sharif Cooper, of course.
Jalen Johnson. Jalen Johnson was another one. So yeah, there were some guys, and I guess you could throw Cam Thomas on that list now too. But like, of course, there were some guys that we would have liked to look at. That said, the way that things ultimately went down, where basically that pick ended up turning into Cam Reddish, I'm not mad at it. Obviously, you like having that extra bit of team control that would have been afforded by having a guy drafted this year versus in 2019. But I think Cam Thomas is going to be fine. I think that, I said this before the show, and maybe this is slightly sacrilegious. I think he's a slightly buffed Alonzo Trier. So, he'll have a good career potentially as a scoring guard off the bench or whatever, but I don't know that he's like the answer to any real question for the Knicks. And quite frankly, if Deuce McBride were getting more playing time, I'd probably say, hey, I like Deuce McBride because he could do a lot of the things that Cam Thomas does, except also play defense and pass the ball more. Which we saw in those few games where Deuce was actually given a chance. So given a do-over, I don't know, maybe I'd look at him, but I don't, he seems good. I'm just not sold that he's going to be some like game-changing ultimate mega steal from the 27th pick or wherever they drafted him. So I'm not super broken up over it. I don't know about you though.
No, I mean, I get like why he's bringing him up. Like they're like anyone who watched the fourth quarter tonight, even though a lot of that was on the fact that, and like, sorry if we want to circle this back to just roasting Thibs, was that Mitchell Robinson just did not make an adjustment in terms of coming up like further off his mark basically, and Cam Thomas was just hitting like practice shots in his face because of that, and that is again on Tom Thibodeau. But I think there's a little bit of star equity with Thomas just because like he has like Breen kept mentioning that's like his strength. Like he has that scorer's body. He has the shot. He's clearly really intuitive. The guy is probably the single worst passer in the NBA. The defense is not very good. He's someone like, 19. Do you maybe want to take a chance on? Sure. I will. Of all the areas I'm going to knock the Knicks, I'm not going to knock them on the draft. I think they had an incredible draft. Quentin Grimes could end up being one of the better picks in the last couple of years. Miles McBride and Rokas Jokubaitis seem like they're going to be contributors eventually. The Knicks had a very, very good draft. That is not the area of my ire. Let's see what else we got. All right, let's throw this to. I'll throw this to you, Alex. Keith Paris at Ronin 1957. Cool username. I wonder if that's like the Marvel Ronin. I'd love to ask him, or maybe it's something completely different. Way too many questions, but probably the one that sticks out is why doesn't anyone ask Thibs the hard question instead of letting him off the hook after these coaching meltdowns? Presumably, he means in post-game press conferences.
Yeah, I give props to the guys in the media to some degree lately. I think they have been asking Thibs questions. This guy's been around the block. He's full of platitudes. He's full of, he's full of ways to deflect.
Whoa, Alex! He said everything is on the table tonight. Okay, so just slow your roll a little bit. Okay, wow. He gets it.
He might try playing Obi and Julius together next game.
Let's not go too far.
But I would be the first to say, I think that the media has tippy-toed around tough stuff with Knicks coaches, Knicks players, whatever in the past. I do think there is a tightrope walk you have to walk. Having been in that room myself, like the Knicks have a PR person who at any particular moment can just go and end the interview right there. If they feel like things are getting too antagonistic or something, there's various different things that could happen, where the Knicks can kind of try to put the screws to you for being too antagonistic with your questions. And I do think that they have been doing a good job, at least. And, for some of these guys, like, I love Berman to death, but I don't think that he's an X's and O's expert, but he'll ask the question after every single game, what went wrong? What didn't work? Why didn't you keep so-and-so in when they were playing well? And that's all you can really do. I don't know what more people want. I don't expect any of the beat guys other than maybe like Fred Katz, who does ask some procedural questions sometimes, to ask like, why did you have Kemba Walker guarding so-and-so and why were you playing drop instead of, trying to get over screens or whatever? Like the guys don't really follow stuff to that degree, I don't think, as good of a job as some of them do on the beat. So that's basically my answer there. I don't think it's like, I don't think they've been doing a particularly bad job this year. I think Thibs is just really good at deflecting, and that's basically it.
Yeah, you asked the wrong question, they'll take you to another room and make you watch game film. So it's not.
Yeah, they'll Clockwork Orange you until you start saying that, the 2005 Knicks were an enjoyable watch. It's terrible.
Ronaldo Balkman was underrated. All right. I think that's all we got in terms of questions. Alex, I don't know about you. I'm pretty content to wrap up right there.
I am spent, buddy. I'm tired of talking about these stupid losses. Thank goodness for the All-Star break. We have some fun episodes going over some different stuff coming up. We do have some draft talk coming up with our buddy Prez from the Strickland. We'll be giving us sort of a primer on a lot of the guys, and then we're going to, in earnest, start our draft coverage sooner than later because we're tired of talking about the product on the court. We'll also be talking to Brendan Clean from the Locked On Suns podcast about a potential DeAndre Ayton deal in the offseason. That'll be coming, I think, next week at this rate. And then, like we said, we're going to take the last question that we got today from Ignacio Lobregat, asking our ideal, most fun Knicks All-Star Saturday night lineups and who we think would win each various contest. That should be a lot of fun. So we're going to do that on probably the episode for Saturday this week. So we've got a lot of great stuff coming up for you guys. Hope you'll stick around. Thank you all for listening to this episode. We'll be back in your ears and on your YouTube feed sooner than later. But until next time, peace out, everybody. Talk to you all soon.